G'day, guys. Welcome to another edition of the Detour Live. And John, is your audio working?
I think it's perfect, mate. I mean, I give you one job. You do one time, you have to start without me. And all you do is put shit on me as always. And then you can't deliver. If I'm not there to keep an eye on you, you bloody stuff it up. But anyway, we'll move on.
I'm telling you now, that rattled me. That absolutely cooked me. I couldn't recover for the rest of the show. But your audio is working. That's great. And we're going to go live now, John, straight into it, straight to the Vuelta with one of the how do we describe our guest? He's one of the real good guys of cycling. I spent a lot of time with him in Girona. He was a racer at the time, and now he's transitioned into the role as a DS. He's working with the Israel Startup Nation, and that is, of course, Zak Dempster. Zak, can you hear us? Is your audio working?
I hope so. You hear me?
Yeah, perfect, mate.
Loud and clear. Yeah,
it's going to be a good episode. I can sense it. Yeah. Hey, how are you traveling, mate? How are you finding the Vuelta so far?
Yeah, good. We've got Dan, obviously, in third on GC, and he's passed quite a few of the tests now really well. So, all guns blazing for the last week. We've got a big weekend coming up with the Queen stage tomorrow. Yeah, all good.
It's great to see Dan going so well, Zak, because he's had a pretty horrendous 18 months coming back from injuries and stuff. And we saw his interview the other night. He was very emotional.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about Dan Martin is a winner, and when you go, 18 months without a win, it's hard. But the way he won the stage, the way he's been performing the whole first week, I think he can be really proud, and the whole team can be proud of the way he's fought back. It's easy to forget that he did the tour and he had a broken back. Broke his sacrum in the Dauphiné, so it's no mean feat to get back for the tour, finish the tour, and now he's just coming like this. Because a guy like that, if you're in the tour, you're not racing for GC every day, you can really make steps. So I think he's seeing the fruits of that labour now.
Well, we saw tears from Dan post-race. Was there tears in the team car?
Yeah, I mean, finally also in the tour, we didn't get a win. And in the Giro, obviously, Alex Dowsett got a stage, but it's that big step to win stage with all the GC contenders there on the big stage. So the team's a new World Tour team, but I guess you can say the whole organisation really enjoyed it.
There's a big buzz around. I was going to say a big buzz around Israel Startup Nation with Chris Froome, Tour de France, 4-time winner, joining you next year. So that has really put a lot of focus on the team. How well do you know Chris?
I actually raced a little bit in Asia with him. He was on Konik Minolta in the South African team back in 2007. So I've raced with him a few times. I don't know him that well, but he's a stand-up guy, and what you see him doing here, even right in the front and all those things, you can see that he's on the right way. And obviously, it's a huge sign for the team. And then on top of that, we've got guys like Sepp Van Aert coming, Mike Woods, who won the other day. So you can see the team taking a real step forward next year to be one of the bigger, be right there in forefront of the races.
Demmers, how have you found the transition from being a rider into the DS role and working a lot more behind the scenes?
Yeah, it's been, to be honest, I thought I might miss riding a little bit, but I haven't at all. I have this competitive outlet now, and I'm just excited to be here and be doing it. There's all new things I'm learning every day. At the start, it was busy. You're trying to work out how to set up your day. You live in your own little world as a cyclist, and you have your things you concentrate on and all that stuff. And now it's just transitioning that into something new. But I've loved it. Yeah, I wouldn't change it.
And there's obviously a lot of prep that goes into a race like the Vuelta. Just be careful of your mic, mate. We've got very high mic standards on this show. It's bumping on your shirt there. The other side. You're right, mate. But I was going to say there's a lot of prep that goes into the Vuelta, particularly with tactics. We had Luke Roberts on the other night, and he was saying that even at the Giro, there was like every scenario covered so that when something happened in the race, they knew what, scenario they're going to go to. How much goes into not only working out what your tactics are, but trying to predict what other teams are going to do as well?
Yeah, so that's part of my job here is I set up the race plans a little bit, and then Oscar Guerrero, who's a Spanish director from here, he drove most of the route before. So normally we're thinking, on the first rest day, we set up the plan for most of the race, the demands of the stage. Then we look at how we can best utilize our energy. We're not Movistar, we don't have Viti, have Valverde as a domestique. So we really need to use the guys on each day specifically to play that role they need. So yeah, we're looking further ahead than tomorrow, let's say.
Iffy?
Yeah, we had Dave Brassford on a couple of days ago, and he was fantastic. But the one question I forgot to ask him was whether he thought that Chris Froome could come back to sort of the Tour de France winning type form. What are your thoughts on that?
I think you've just got to go step by step. It's so easy to think a long time in advance or where you're going. But the important thing is that he goes through the process. He does his rehab. He's here at the Vuelta doing a pretty good job from my point of view. And once he has that race in his legs, who knows what his limits might be. I think that's the most important thing. If he can go through the process, make those steps, then whatever happens.
Now, we've got some comments that are coming in live, and of course, Wendy Superfan, she's red hot. Zach, what role will Daryl Impey play in your team next year?
Daryl Impey is good uphill, he's good downhill, he's good flat, he's good in crazy situations. I think reliable guy. So yeah, I think he'll have his own opportunities to go for wins like he has in the past. He's a Tour de France stage winner, Tour de France yellow jersey too, so he's an opportunistic guy, but for sure, he's also there for the team. Whenever it's not a chance for him to win, he's there for the team, leading out. With the climbers late on mountain stages often. So yeah, he's the key guy for sure.
We've got another comment. Tom Maloney says, great to see you, Zach, and congratulate you on your work to keep moving on in the cycling world. Always enjoyed seeing you race back at Footscray on your trips home many years ago. Has it been hard? Obviously, this year we've spoken to a lot of riders with COVID and all that sort of situation. How are all your guys holding up at this sort of, we're late October and we're still in the middle of a Grand Tour?
All right, because we've come in with a really fresh young team. So it's 5 guys doing the first Grand Tour. And then we've got Dan, like we mentioned, he had a broken back, got through the tour, and he's come here, hungry. Then we have Reto Hollenstein, who's same thing. He hasn't raced a lot until this point, and he's been a key guy in the finals. And then we actually have Rory, who it's the last race of his career. He's going to retire after this. So far, this team that we have here, they're fresh. But you can see, even in the classics and things like that, that it is late October, end of October, and most of the people are on holidays right now. So I think that's going to have a big effect, especially on the weekend, because these are big, long mountain stages, long, hard climbs. When it's a straightforward flat run-in climb, it's a different thing. So I think we should see some surprises on the weekend.
Iffy?
You're talking about the how tough it's going to be in a couple of days, but we've had the Grand Tours this year have just been fantastic. The Tour de France was one of the best bike races I've ever seen, and the Giro just as well, and so brutal. And so far, this Vuelta has been even more brutal. But luckily, the last week's not quite so bad. But still, this weekend coming up is pretty serious. How's Dan feeling?
Good. The thing is, as a rider, when I used to sit there, I rode with Leopold Koenig, and he was 7th in the Tour one year, and I was just amazed by how big their engines are. They recover, and they're in these long, hard stages, going on the absolute limit, and then they seem to just feel better sometimes. Like Dan's looking good, he looks fresh. He's like I mentioned before, he went through the Tour, he wasn't on GC. So yeah, I think we're pretty confident that in a long, hard mountain stage with numerous climbs from far away, he should be able to hold his own for sure.
We've got
go on, go first.
Well, actually, it's a good point because someone made a comment. Love how you guys constantly talk over each other. Why is this so difficult to sort out? I think it's just it's technical difficulties, and we had a system where it was like put your finger up if you want to speak, but that lasted about 2 days. Yeah, the middle finger normally. Wilson Hatton says, "What will happen with Alex Dowsett and next season?"
I'm not sure. At the Giro, obviously, he won a stage and was, super critical in the lead out. So I'm sure that they're working that out behind the scenes. But in terms of my role here, we're really focused just on this race, not on the negotiations for next year.
Oh, come on, Demmers. You're in the back end. We want to break some stories, mate. Well, one thing I want to talk to you about, we were talking to Simon Gerrans yesterday about riders and their transition from being a cyclist to going into the real world. Now, you raced with the Drapac team back in the day, and that was a big focus about setting riders up to think about what it was going to be like, once you'd finish your career. How important do you think that is in the pro peloton to sort of get riders at least thinking about some stuff outside of the sport?
I think there's a huge gap in that. So I actually primarily work with the Continental team here. We're doing a development project that's thinking a lot more long term. If you see the signings we've done, these are guys that are performers now. Into the future, we're going to focus a lot more on getting good young guys in and developing them. I was super lucky to be on Drapac because I was aware of what was of this hole that could happen at the end of my career, and what I was going to do and having purpose. I think it's really important, and we're going to dedicate a lot of time to that now. I think that some really basic things that we should be teaching, we're not teaching, having guys think about what's the next step after their career, also how to manage themselves early in their career. Why don't we learn about taxes in school, as an example? That seems pretty stupid to me. So giving these guys the skills so they don't, waste their money, and they're smart with their money, setting up their finances with their salary of how to invest in themselves as a sports person and how to invest in themselves as a person for later. Michael Drapac always is the example that if your self-esteem's a table and it's only got one leg in that sport, then you're on a path to fall at one point.
So how do you feel when you see these young guys when they get good contracts driving around in Ferraris and Lambos? Are you sort of thinking, geez, man, like you better cool your jets there?
Depends on how big the contract is, no? If they're on minimum wage and they buy a Fiat Panda, then they're probably not doing that good.
Yeah. We've got another question from Andy Matthews. He says, "Hi, guys. Question for Zach. What about 21-year-old Alex Renard, who came in 6th yesterday? Is he a new sprinting sensation or more of an all-rounder?"
Alexis has been doing really good. So he's the French under-23 champ last year. He came through Côte d'Amour in Bretagne. And I don't know if many people noticed, but if you have a look on the stage to Fort Magal, the super cold stage, is not really a climber, and he was there with 30 or 40 guys left. So the last couple of days he's had it pretty easy. We've saw how strong he was, and we said, okay, let's cool his jets, keep him there for the critical points, and today's one of those. It's a complicated finish, pretty classic style. It was in the Vuelta in 2008, in the run into the Varese Worlds, where Balan won, and Paolo Bettini won the stage there that day, to give you some idea. So real complicated last kilometre, as well as a complicated run-in, and hopefully we'll see him there looking after Dan today.
I've got another question from Tom Maloney again. How do you see the attrition rate in this Vuelta with falls, time limits, and pure exhaustion at season's end?
Yeah. You saw the two AG2R guys get off on the first day, so it's clear to see that there are tired bodies around. Let's see. Like I said, I keep talking about this weekend because it is so hard. Tomorrow's the 4th hardest of all the Grand Tour stages this year. So I think we're going to see that really come to the forefront.
Zach,
well, we've got this.
I was going to ask you while we're talking about the Vuelta. Last night, Sam Bennett got disqualified. What were your thoughts on that?
Yeah, bring back the biff.
That's
No,
why you're a good man. Love you, Devers.
No, I think it was pretty aggressive. But he's not a sprinter when you're in those moments. But now with all the incidents we've had, they do need to take a hard line sometimes. And I haven't seen it closely. I saw it as it was happening. I thought, I don't know how that's gonna come out, but obviously they took the decision, and that's what they're to do. Yeah, you're never gonna be happy when you get rubbed for something, prior to when you're opening your sprint. But yeah, it's part of sprinting, and those guys ride on the limit. They're not thinking about commissaires at that point. They're just protecting their position, and he was on his lead up man, by the way.
You don't normally see guys, especially not great sprinters, trying to move in on a sprint train. You're pretty well asking for trouble, I reckon. I thought he was a bit hard done by.
Yeah, that guy's asking for trouble. But it's Emil's Lepsons, and if you look through his results, I race a lot with him. He's a racer, and he's a winner. He races in those really tough Belgium 1.1 and 1.HC, so he's not scared to throw his weight around either. So I don't think he was, checking his name tag on his bike. He was just trying to get the wheel because he already got the wheel taken off him from Laura. And then here's the next one. Next, okay, let's go.
Yeah, exactly. It's like going on a bushwalk. You don't kick snakes; they'll bite you. So just let them go. Now, Demers, the stage today. What do you think's going to happen, mate?
Looks pretty easy on that little profile, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's pretty flat.
No, it's not. It's up and down, super complicated final. We went and took videos last night. And like I mentioned, if you go back to 2008 Vuelta, it had a little bit of a bigger climb leading in, but it was really split up. Castaban in that time got caught on the back foot with Valverde, and coming in, it was Contador on the bottom of the climb, really ripping. The last K is hard. Bettini won, to give you some idea. So I think you can, even though it looks like a sprint stage, and you go, oh, maybe Ackerman will get there, maybe Bennett will. I think we're probably looking at a breakaway day. Guys like Remy Cavagna, Tim Wellens, people like that will be looking to jump up the road, and we might have one of those really exciting breakaway finals. Luis Leon Sanchez too, could be a good day for him.
All right. Well, anything you want to add before we let Demers get back into it, Iffy?
No, fantastic to see you, bud. I still remember the Bay Crits when you had the leader's jersey on and lost it by about a tyre to Brenton Jones. But,
yeah.
Always comes back to the Bay Crits on this show.
Yeah. I should have brought back the biff that day. I would have Bay Crits title to my name. You'd be talking about me winning it, not getting second.
Yeah. Oh, well, good luck for the weekend, Demers. It sounds like it's going to be pretty filthy, but as you said, Dan Martin, he's at the pointy end. He's third on GC at the moment, and he's looking pretty good. And, he's a good guy too, so we'll be rooting for him. So all the best, mate.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me.
Go on, you Demers. Zak Dempster, one of the all-round great guys of the sport. Now, we're talking about relegation. We've got Robbie McEwen. We did an interview with him earlier, which was fantastic. While we play that, John, that'll give you a chance to go out the back and check on your bug zapper. Where are you at the moment? You're in Nagambie. Looks like you're in Guantanamo Bay, mate. You've really jazzed up the background for the show. You have not even made the bed.
Yes, I have. It's a quilt over top of the bed. But no, all the family arrived because it's my young bloke Dean's 40th birthday on Sunday. So everyone's turned up and a few of the kids. And so I have my little studio outside, but there's kids running everywhere. And plus you hate the bug zapper. So I thought I'd come into the only quiet room, which is the bedroom.
Yep. Oh, well, it looks great. Why don't we go to a plug for Mitchelton first? We'll play the bike exchange, and then we can go to Robbie's interview. So, you're there at the moment. You are in Nagambie.
I am in Nagambie, and I'm glad you brought it up because I haven't even got the script out in front of me, but I have now. I found it.
This is just sensational podcasting at the moment, folks. We had the dramas with the start yesterday. If he's scrambling for his notes.
I got to say, I watched the show today. I pissed myself laughing at that start. We're putting all shit on me, and then couldn't even hear Matty Keenan, the professional.
Yeah, I will never ever watch the start of that show for the rest of my life, mate. That is done in the back of my memory. So Mitchelton Wines, mate.
So we've got some wonderful photos, but on Sunday when I'm there for Dino's 40th, I will be taking some more. So Sunday night we'll have a lot of happy snaps. But it's one of Australia's favourite wineries and a place of escape. Experience the history, the beauty and the serenity of the Goulburn Valley at your own pace. Looking over the vineyards from the iconic tower, staying at the new hotel, relaxing by the pool, recharging in the day spa, exploring the seasonal menu at the Muse, which I'm going to do big time on Sunday, stopping by the Providore, touring the cellars, and of course tasting their signature wines. It's become a hugely popular venue for weddings and major functions. So if you're thinking about having a wedding there, I think you've got to book about 12 months ahead. So, but
John, can you lean into your mic a bit more, mate? You're just a bit. Yeah, that's it.
Of course, the Aboriginal Art Gallery is world class. It has got some of the most gorgeous art down there, including the $10,000 Land Cruiser with a $1.1 million paint job. So definitely worth a look.
Sensational stuff, mate. And now it's time for a quick word from our great mates at Bike Exchange.
Look at this bike. You think it's just a bike, right? But it's not. It's a bike. 374 people are looking at. This guy, this girl, them, all looking at it. People from here, there, and wherever this is. People that are looking for a bike. Or just a piece of it. Amateurs, semi-amateurs, and pro-amateurs. This guy wants this bike, but with this crank and these bars. This could be the perfect match. But not this one. This girl has a bike to sell, and thousands of people might purchase it. Eyes on Bikes help grow small businesses. His, hers, yours, and the latest data and insights help those businesses keep moving. We are the world's #1 bike marketplace, with over 500,000 products and 900 brands, where buyers and sellers are brought together in a place where a bike is never just a bike. Bike Exchange, where the world buys, sells, learns, and rides.
Now, as we said earlier, we caught up with the great Robbie McEwen. Now, before we do, you know what's a bit hypocritical in terms of it was a different era, and we've spoken about, they're wanting to protect sprinters and clean up the argy-bargy. But we had Baden Cook on, I think it was stage 4 of the Giro, and you look at this sprint again, and this, who was it, Bettini again?
Yeah.
He only got relegated 10 spots so that he could keep his jersey. Let's have another look at that famous sprint with Cookie.
2 is trying to come away, Luca Mazzanti. But it looks as though this might be a win. Oh, and dear me, well, Bettini moved over there for my money, and that's cut down. Bettini wins, and Mazzanti is second. But if I was the referee, I think I'd be looking to relegate Bettini for that. We might see it again.
I think they will be looking at that very seriously. Cookie is not happy at all. He was in the ideal position. This man could have burst off the wheel of Bettini.
That was a win.
Let's just have a look at it one more time. Cookie's already been down once. If you look at his knee, there is already blood there. Bettini moves across his line there, pushes Cookie, and Cookie at this point has lost it straight into the barriers. He's gone down very hard, and that's a shame, Phil, because his form this year was starting to reflect the form he had a couple of years ago.
10 spots. And unfortunately, my mate Joe Pesci wasn't running the show then, so I can't point the finger at him. So now Robbie's chat was fantastic. Goes for 20 minutes, but as I've mentioned a few times on this show, with the software, we've had to split it up into a few different parts. So here's part 1 of our chat with Robbie earlier today. Righto, Iffy, we've got a special guest who's he knows quite a bit about sprint relegations. He's been on the receiving end, and he's probably dished out a few. Robbie McEwen, first of all, mate, how are you travelling?
Yeah, not bad, Dan. All good up here in Queensland. Sort of well publicised, we're just going about life as normal, and unfortunately for some others, they're not able to do the same. But up here is just absolutely fantastic. You know, they say perfect one day, or beautiful one day, perfect the next. Yeah, something like that. I forget. It's just too good.
Well, now, whispers you were brown-nosing with the AFL Elite. Did that lead to grand final tickets or what?
Well, it wasn't brown-nosing. We just had a drink. But, yeah, I went to the GF. It was great.
Yeah? What did you think of the what did you think of the pre-game entertainment?
Well, I've heard from people that weren't there, said like, oh, it wasn't that good. I tell you what, live at the ground, it was fantastic.
Yeah.
So maybe it was just more of a translating into production that it maybe didn't work as well, but being there, it was awesome. I think
a lot of Victorians have never really liked you, Robbie, and that'll be more the case now, I can tell you.
I think that's what it's about. Like, I mean, it's hard enough as it is, people being in lockdown and then the GF taking place in another state and then not being able to be there and then just hating on everything about it because it wasn't accessible, and I totally get it. So I don't want to pump up too much how incredible it was.
Well, for our international listeners, I just want you to do one thing, and that's Google Meatloaf AFL Grand Final. And at one point there, I never thought I'd say it, but I wanted to bring back the loaf.
Some people want to bring back the loaf, but, Shepherd and the guy from Wolfmother, he was good.
Yeah.
Shepherd, they were great. And I'll tell you what, all the rest didn't matter. It was just a really good game. And I didn't grow up with AFL. But I started to follow it a little bit more, and I was really genuinely interested in the game, and it was a really good game. I loved it.
Well, we wanted to obviously talk to you about what happened at the Vuelta overnight. Let's have a quick look at the incident for the people that haven't seen it.
Bennett on the wheel of Morcow, works his way up. Leapins is holding line.
When you see this slow motion picture from the helicopter, that is a big barge, and it going at around 60 kilometers per hour probably at this point. It could be very, very dangerous, the outcome of what potentially could happen. And I think that's the reason why the commissaires are taking so long to assess the situation here.
And they'll talk to the riders as well, won't they? And make a decision about what's going to happen here.
Well, there you go. That was part one of our chat with Robbie.
My thoughts
part two.
What happened there is, what happened is pretty normal. When you're in Bennett's position, you have to defend that position. And you've got to look at what his choices are. From the helicopter, what you don't get a good grasp of is how close to the barriers he is. And Lippens is coming in. And all you've got to do in Lippens' position is just keep squeezing in, come back and sit on his handlebars and squeeze him out of it. So it's either jam on the brakes and lose any chance of winning for Bennett or risk going into the barriers. You've got to defend yourself. I mean, Bennett really didn't have any choice of what to do. People say, oh, yeah, because he had a choice. He could have hit the brakes. No, that's not one of the choices. You've got to keep moving forward, defend your position. He was on the back of his teammate. What Lippens is doing there is, it's a good crafty move to get position. What the no-no is you don't do it to someone who's sitting on the wheel of their teammate.
No,
you just don't.
That was the part, wasn't it? Yeah.
It wasn't a headbutt from Sam Bennett. It was a shoulder. It was a shoulder to the torso of Lippens, which just gave himself some room again. I understand at the moment in the current climate, looking back on the Fabio Jakobsen crash at the Tour of Poland a few months ago, they've really clamped down on absolutely any movement, any contact within the sprint. So when you look at it in that context, you're going to say, okay, it was almost obvious he was going to get DQ'd. But I find it a shame for sprinting, for cycling, that people say, oh, but look how dangerous it was and what potentially could have happened. These guys are professional riders. They're in these situations almost on a daily basis. They're doing what they do, and nobody came down. I would rather have seen a blind eye turned because Bennett's just defending himself and defending his position. And I didn't find it overly aggressive considering they're going that quick and the other guy's trying to squeeze in on him and he's on the wheel of a teammate. So I reckon it was more of a line ball, but I just, knowing the commissaires and how they've been acting on things over the last few months, that they were just going to go straight away disqualification, which is find a shame.
Is it that he did it twice? There were two, almost similar thumps.
Didn't get the message the first time.
Now, I want to get your thoughts on some good shoulder barges. Like, this is a classic back in the day with you and Cookie. If you can see in the photo there that the Cookie's sort of deviating off his line. I mean, what was the process after the finish of that stage?
Well, apparently the commissaires had a quick look and went, nah, we'll just leave it. And you can see the angles there. Cookie was prepared to go down in that one. He's like, this is all or nothing. And he got it all. So that's how the cookie crumbles in racing.
For people who don't realise, Matt was on the shops to say that was for the green jersey. Whichever one of you was first, got in front of the other, it was for second place in the stage because you were frigging around and let someone else.
Yeah, and it was neck and neck, and he just thought, I'm going to throw everything at this, and if I stay up, then see what happens. And at the time, you just go like, shit. But that's how racing pans out. And as Dan said at the top of the segment here, I've been on both ends. I've given them, I've got them, I've been DQ'd, I've been moved up.
There's another famous photo with Stewie from the 2005 tour. Now that actually cost you the green jersey, Robbie.
Yeah, it was costly. And I mean, again, you've got to look at, and this is, I think, where you need an expert's eye or someone at least with a point of reference when you look at these sorts of things. When you look at that photo and you see Stewie's elbows out and across me, and look where my right arm is, and look where my elbow is next to my knee, there's absolutely nothing else my body can do without taking my hand off the handlebars. And you've just got to try and push yourself out of the situation and keep moving forward and not stack it. And, on that occasion, they said, oh, yeah, headbutts. But if you could have actually felt them, it would have been like a finger tapping. That's how much force was behind them. Just trying to wiggle myself out from underneath. And, there's always going to be disagreements. People are going to go either way on what should have been decided. As a rider, I mean, you've just got to roll with it and get over it, because even if you go, I'm going to appeal the decision, you're appealing to the same people that made the original decision. They're not going to make themselves look stupid and go back on and say, oh, yeah, you know what? We were wrong. We'll overrule ourselves. Never happens.
Now, before we go to part 3 of Robbie, I had to laugh at some of the comments. So poor old Alan, he's commented, who do you follow in the AFL, Robbie? And then he's worked out as a pre-record, and his next one was, oops.
On your skull.
Yeah. All right. Is part 3 of our chat with Robbie. Now, I love trying to bait Robbie and talk about like the old incidents, and he handles it a lot better than Cookie. I think Cookie was still bitter. Like, even though that year he won the green jersey, he's still bitter that he didn't get those points in that intermediate sprint. But yeah, I think Robbie's got some closure. But anyway, here's part 3 of our chat with Robbie McEwen.
I think the good thing for Sam Bennett is, okay, he's already got a stage win in this Vuelta. He's missed out on a second one. But the guy's won a couple of stages at the Tour de France and got the green jersey, so who cares?
Yeah, exactly. Now, one other famous one I want to show you.
That last photo, is that the one where Boonan's team come out and because they were sponsored by a mattress company and sort of had to go at you for sleeping on the job, sort of thing? Was that
something along those lines? The same Elaine Stewie saying an arrow to me saying sleepy, and Boonan well rested.
And I think you beat him the next day to win the stage.
2 days later, next day was a team's time trial, and I had a rip up because I was just so pissed off. I had a ripper of a team's time trial, best ever. And then the day after that, I won and sort of got my own back a little bit. But yeah, as you said before, it cost me in the end. I think it was like a 26 or 28 point swing in the green jersey, and I think I was 14 behind in Paris. So, little things make a big difference. But, as a rider, and particularly as a sprinter, you're on that knife's edge. You've got to push it to the limits. And sometimes you'll go just over and you'll get relegated. And other times you'll get away with it. There's times where you think it happens to you and you think, well, I'll come out on top here. I'll end up with the stage when the other guy will get relegated, and they don't, and you feel hard done by. So, generally what goes around comes around. And, hopefully for a guy like Sam, get disqualified a few times, maybe move up a couple of times. I mean, it was only a matter of, 2 weeks ago in the Skelder press that Pascal Ackermann got disqualified. He cut across, he found a gap, he came out, just whipped across someone else's front wheel, caused an enormous crash. Caleb Ewan won the race. Ackermann got disqualified. This time he got beaten, but this time Sam Bennett got disqualified and Ackerman comes away with a stage win. So, swings and roundabouts.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, one of the most famous headbutts would have to been the 2010 Tour de France. You were racing that year, Robbie, and that was the Ren Dog. Let's have a quick look at that finale.
Now it's up to Renshaw. Mark Renshaw kicks, but they're shoulder to shoulder towards the line. Cavendish is getting out of the mix here. He's going to have to come on the right of our picture. Now he goes, and Pataki goes on the left. But Mark Cavendish again makes it a formality. When he sees the finish, he is absolutely impossible to beat. Mark Cavendish gets his 13th victory in a Tour de France, and he makes it look so easy.
Now, that was a full kicked off the race disqualification. And as you said, if you're in the moment, the force of what he was doing, it looked much worse on TV. Did you think that decision to completely boot him off the race was a little bit harsh?
I thought it was harsh to boot him off the race. I think they looked at the situation and said, well, if we disqualify or relegate Renshaw off the stage result, makes absolutely no difference to him because he's not trying to win the race. He's trying to lead out Cavendish. And they want to sort of, make an example and take a stand. But you look at a couple of, the first headbutt was just a one to Julian to don't come over any further. The last one, I'm not sure it even touched him. It's more a flick of the head, like, yeah, I told you, you just stay over there. And it was a bit over the top to kick him off the race completely, I thought.
Well, I went down a bit of a rabbit hole and found the moment that Cav found out and then tried to take on the commissaire. It's absolute gold. Have a look at this.
Mark Cavendish, many congratulations on the third victory in this tour. But that's me, a day with mixed emotions. You win and your lead-out man is out of the race.
I don't know. If something's going on. Let's see what happens there. I'm not sure.
It's official. He's out of the race. They disqualified him and put him out of the Tour de France.
I think we're trying to feel that, I think you see Julian Dean put his elbow over him. He was just kind of self-defense,
You haven't heard about it? It's Jean-François Pecheux.
It's a problem. It's not possible. No.
What about Pareto? What about the guys?
Yeah. No convincing the powers that be at the ASO. Here's part 4 in the wash-up with Robbie.
Just goes to show you can't argue with the commissaire. Once he's made his mind up, he's got the head signals going.
Yeah, well, that wasn't the commissaire. It's Jean-Francois Pecheux. So it works with ASO, basically race director.
Right.
So in between Jean-Marie Leblanc and Christian Prudhomme. But yeah, once the decision's made, that's it. There's no coming back from it.
Yeah.
As a rider, it's actually really frustrating that you're not engaged in the process. You don't get to defend your actions. You don't get to explain anything about it. And it's in the hands of people who haven't been professional cyclists. They haven't been sprinters. They haven't ridden at close quarters in the bunch. And that's the frustrating part about the whole process for riders. And there's often been calls for why don't we have people with actual expertise that, been there, done it, instead of people who have just always been on the sidelines.
Well, why don't they do like horse racing? If there's a protest in horse racing, they bring in the jockeys, they explain what they were doing, and it's like a group session where you can all get it out on the table.
Because it's always been the same. It's a power deal with the UCI in particular. We run the sport. You'll just do as you're told, and it's always been the same. And there's never been anything in their constitution to allow for a proper appeal process where it goes to then an independent tribunal. Even in a game of footy, the referee says it's on report. And then it goes to a tribunal. They assess it. Then you can appeal it. In cycling, it's like, no, move on. Next stage is about to start. You're with us or you're not. And by the way, your mate's not starting. And it is frustrating that is the process. I guess on the upside, it's over quickly.
Yeah. Oh, well, while we've got you, Robbie, before we let you go, been a pretty big couple of weeks for Australian cycling, particularly with Jai Hindley and O'Connor young Aussie guys bopping around at the pointy end of the Giro. Must be pretty exciting times for the next crop.
Oh, it absolutely is. I mean, it's so good to see those young guys coming through now, particularly a guy like Ben O'Connor, who with NTT, they haven't got a sponsor for next year. There's a lot of uncertainty, and now he's got a one-year deal with AG2R, and he's got his first Grand Tour stage win. The same with Jai. They've come through as really promising young riders, and I think it's so tough for these guys that come out of the under-23 ranks as real with a lot of promise. But then it's so hard to deliver in the first 2, 3, 4 years because you're up against, such experienced, strong riders, seasoned professionals. And it can be hard for these young guys to just keep their morale, to keep the faith in themselves, for others to keep having faith in them, and to just stay in the game and keep a contract, get signed up again, because they might be through 2 times 2-year contracts. And then sort of people say to them, well, you haven't really made it. You haven't lived up to expectation, and you're not getting a deal for next year, and they don't get to continue. I think it's really tough, the amount of expectation on them. I think a lot of guys get signed simply too young.
Yep, good point, Robbie. Here's the last part of our chat with Mr. McEwen.
But in the last 12 months, hasn't it turned around? All these young kids, 21-year-olds were in the Tour de France last year. Bernard was 23. It's just the changing of the guards, very, very different in the last 12 months.
It is, and I think it's this COVID situation with the way we've seen races cancelled, the season stopped. I was talking with Keno, and I said, I reckon this year will be a lot of young riders going really well at the Grand Tours. Because of the whole season stop, you'll see the guys who can really train well, come straight out of training and race well, and that is much more of an advantage for young riders. The young physiology, it just comes up a lot quicker, hits form a lot easier off training rather than the old diesels. They need time, they need racing, they need those preparation races, and they haven't had them. And they're stepping straight into the World Tour level, straight. There's none of those sort of in-betweener races, the smaller races to get ready. And, the younger guys have just come out firing on all cylinders. And some of the older guys have found it really tough. You look at maybe their last Grand Tour might have been, say, the Vuelta last year, and then the next big race was in August this year. That's nearly a year out of racing. And the older engines are just not prepared for that. I think some of them will see next season much get better again. Now they've had a Tour, a Giro, or a Vuelta in the legs late this year, and they'll step into next year. They'll be much better again. But I thought this year was always going to be one for the younger guys coming straight out of hibernation and into full gas racing. It was really going to suit the younger ones.
That was definitely a big part of it. But I was just going to say, but last year, even though, when you have, Remco, Evenepoel, Van der Poel, Bernal, dominating as well, and there was no COVID then. So the younger brigade it is a real changing of the guard, I reckon. And
they're always coming through. Yeah, always coming through. And, Van der Poel's not super young, and he's come off, already a number of years being signalled as, a really big gun and one for the future. We were just waiting for him to come across onto the road. But Evenepoel, he's a phenomenon. Looking forward to seeing him come back from injury and see if he can step straight back to the level he was at before. That'll be interesting to watch.
For sure. All right, mate. Well, really appreciate you coming on the detour. Enjoy COVID-free life up there in Queensland, and keep living the dream, Robbie.
I will, Dan, on your behalf. You can ring me anytime and live vicariously through me.
Good on you, mate.
Righto.
Take it easy.
Righto. See you, boys.
Thanks, mate. Great chat with Robbie. What were your key takeaways from that discussion, John?
I was surprised because I spoke to him earlier in the day, and I don't think he'd looked at the stage in a lot of detail. He said, you can't dump them like that. He was sort of thinking it was probably the right thing to rub him out. But I think before he came on air with us, he had a really good look at it and realised, it's probably a bit harsh. So, but look, when it comes to talking about sprinting and what you can do and what you can't do, there's no better man to talk to than Robbie McEwen.
Exactly. Now we've got few more comments. The Wheel Wizard. The UCI stopped appeals after they took hours at the World Track Championships to decide. We've got a question for you, John, from Sally. As a race organiser, can Iffy tell us whether a tribunal type idea could work here or could be introduced here to show the rest of the world how it could be done? Come on, John. Sun Tour. First race to bring in the tribunal.
I believe there should be a tribunal, but I don't. That, as Robbie said, you can put an appeal in now. It used to go back to the same officials, and they've stopped doing that. So there's no appeal process at all at the moment. But I think there should be some guys with experience, like like Robbie, but ex-top sprinters that are there, like Alan Davis, who's working with them. So they're using him, but they should have a little panel of ex-riders who can look at that appeal. It wouldn't be hard to set up. Doesn't have to go for hours, but with a decision like that, it could really mean someone's career in lots of instances. So it should be done, and it could be done.
That's a good point. Who's your predictions for the stage at the Vuelta, Iffy?
Well, I got to say, before I listened to Zach, I thought, you know what, Sam Bennett will be that dirty on what happened, that they'll pull the brake back. But evidently that finish is not really suitable for Sam. So, and it's a long day in the saddle. So I think it will be a breakaway. I like Wellens because Zach mentioned 3 or 4 guys, but Wellens looked very strong the other day.
$23, Wellens.
Yeah, I reckon he's a good bet.
What about Woods? He's 23.
Yeah, well, they're both stage winners in this race, and they're both in great form. Yeah, either one of those are a good bet.
All right, I'll take Woods. You take Wellens. They're both paying $23, and that'll be a great collect. Now, obviously, tomorrow there's a couple of massive stages for the Vuelta, so there'll be a big GC focus. So I'll put the old podcast rod out and see if we can hook maybe George Bennett again. He'd be great for insights going into the GC stage.
Great.
And we'll see how we go. Anything you want to add before we go, mate?
No. I'm just I'm glad to see you've got the voice side of it working better now. You've had your time in the sin bin, so hopefully.
Maybe for tomorrow's show, can you just dress up your background, mate? Just, like I know mine's plain, but at least it sort of looks clean.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll take that on board.
All right, mate. Well, we'll be same time again tomorrow night, 7:30 Australian Eastern Standard Time. Thanks for all your support. Remember to follow us on Facebook, YouTube, and all those other areas where you can hear the podcast, iTunes, and tell your mates. And we'll see you tomorrow night live at 7:30 Australian Eastern Standard Time. See you then.